Welcome to our Amud Yomi Shiur, Maseches Bava Metzia, Daf Tzadi Hey Amud Beis. Today's Amud is Tzadi Vav Amud Aleph, but the Tzadi Hey Amud Beis is where we're still holding right now. And let's go to about 7 lines from the bottom of the page, Tzadi Hey Amud Beis. Line starts with the word Abaye. It's the beginning of a line, beginning of a day, beginning of a week. Tzadi Vav Metzia, Tzadi Hey Amud Beis. If you follow the article, it's probably the last one of the page. Tzadi Amud Beis, Abaye. So basically, the topic is as follows. We've learned before that a sho'el is a person who borrowed something, any item from his friend. And the Halacha says that if the person who borrows the item and now becomes fully obligated to pay if anything happens to the item, that is true only if be'olav ein imoy. In other words, if the bailim, if the owner of, let's say, the cow was not hired or lent in order to do any job as a favor or paid to the sho'el, to the borrower, then we say that he has to pay. However, if the person, the Torah repeats twice, each one the other direction. The Torah also tells us the other way. If the person, the owner, was hired in order to do some kind of job or volunteered to do a job to the sho'el while the animal was being nish'al, was borrowed to the sho'el, then he's potter from anything. Yeah, okay. I'm not sure about anything. We have a question about pshia. Definitely is potter from she'el and gneva vaveda. Now, we also said, that's another introduction, that there are two crucial times in the timeline of the she'ela. You borrowed on Sunday. How do you borrow halachically? The sho'el has to pull the cow, and then Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is working in the field, great cow. On Thursday, the cow broke down. The cow got very ill. The cow died. The cow was stolen unexpectedly, was robbed, kidnapped, UFO came, whatever happened. Yeah, Lamaisa, now the cow is not there, and it's an oines. Even though it's an oines, the sho'el has to pay. However, at which point do we say that the olav imoy, the bailim, was involved, the bailim of the cow was involved and was also doing work for the sho'el in a way that would make him exempt? Is it the time of borrowing? Is at that point, let's say on Sunday, that's when he borrowed it, that's when the owner was there together with the sho'el to help the sho'el, and that's what makes it potter? Or do we say at the time of the disaster, the time of the catastrophe, is that the time when we say? So we quite clearly said, except for one opinion of Rabbi Nuna, which we rejected, we said that's the time, the borrowing. Yeah, if the person borrowed, and at the time of borrowing of the meshichah, then we say that the bailim was with him, then he's exempt, even though much later on when it broke, the bailim wasn't there at all. Does make a difference. The borrowing, that's the right time. The question is how you know that, and that is something we're going to deal with today. That's the beginning of today's shiur. Yeah, how do we know that the crucial time of the borrowing is when you actually pull it, not when the disaster happened regarding the olav imoy? Machlokes Abaye and Rove. It's machlokes Abaye and Rove that's very rare. They don't really argue the halacha. They only argue regarding what the source is. Abaye and Rove are in agreement that the only crucial time for the olav imoy, that the person was borrowed together with the cow, the owner, is the borrowing time, not the breakage time. Why? Let's see. So let's start reading a bit and then another introduction. Abaye Sovoloko Biyoshia. Abaye is a follower of the Tana called Rabbi Yoshia, which we saw recently, are going to see again, and he explains the psukim like Rabbi Yoshia. I promise I'll explain what that means. Rava is a follower, he believes the shita, he holds like the Tana Rabbi Yonason, and he explains the psukim like Rabbi Yonason. Yeah, what does that mean? Abaye Sovolok Rabbi Yoshia. Remember what Rabbi Yoshia said? Rabbi Yoshia is the one who believes b'chol Torah kula. Whenever the Torah says X and Y, yeah, whenever the Torah says A and B, it really means both A and B. Yeah, unless you know otherwise, it doesn't mean and or, it means and. Yeah, in other words, if someone curses his father and mother, Havamina would be you only chayav skila if you cursed both father and mother, not either one of them. La halacha we say each one separate because there's a separate drosha. But otherwise, if the Torah doesn't specify, if the Torah says X and Y, different items, we assume it means both, unless known otherwise. That's the sheet of Rabbi Yoshia against Rabbi Yoinasan. Now, if you remember, now I would like to write it down over here, but I'm not sure it's necessary. The Torah repeats, not exactly repeats, the Torah gives you two ends of the same coin, two sides of the same coin in a way that looks redundant. Remember what the Torah says? The Torah says, Im be'olov imoy, yeah, im ein be'olov imoy shalom shalom. If the owner is not there, then he has to pay. If be'olov imoy, then he's potter. Yeah, if the bailim is there, is potter. Like I made a joke, last week, this restaurant in Africa, they wrote, yeah, we're not open because we're closed. Yeah, like if you're closed, we know you're not open. Lahavdil. So why does the Torah have to ki'ilu be so redundant, right? Oh, so now let's see. That's first. Secondly, there's another point. There's another point before we continue. The Torah mentions both borrowing and broken. It says, yeah, the Torah does mention, yeah, if a person borrows and it's broken. And the Torah says, then the Torah does say the letter Vov, and. The Torah says, "V'chi shalish me'imreu," then nishbar nishba. V'chi yishal someone borrowed and it broke, right? So now if I follow Rabbi Yoshia, what do I think? That you need the entire thing, borrowing and broken, yeah, the whole thing together. What happens to the whole thing together? Let's see now. Abai sovolo Rabbi Yoshia metaretz lekrai Rabbi Yoshia. Abai explains. Metaretz here means explaining. He explains the psukim according to Rabbi Yoshia. Here we get to the main point. The olav ein imay shalem yeshalem. What does it say? When you both borrowed and it got broken, it broke, right? According to the way Rabbi Yoshia reads it, then and the bailim is not there, you don't have to pay. Yeah, you don't have to pay. The bailim ein imay. Sorry, the bailim ein imay. Then you have to pay. Sorry, the owner is not there. The owner is not involved in any stage, the owner is out of the picture, then the sho'el has to pay. What does that mean? Taima, that is to say, the leise betalvayu. According to Rabbi Yoshia, it means the bailim was not here nor there. The bailim wasn't present here and wasn't present at the time of breakage. Ise bechada v'leise bechada potu. That is to say, that if he was present in one of the two, we don't know which one. We don't know which one. Only if he wasn't present at all, you chayiv. Then you chayiv. Mashma, one yes, one no, you're potur, right? And now let's go to the second posuk. The hoksiv. On the other hand, it says in the Torah, im be'olav imoy lo yeshalem. It says on the other hand, if the owner is with him, when is the owner with him? Through and through. Then he doesn't have to pay. Time, that is to say, the isa betavayu. Look, the other pasuk is telling me, when the owner is with him through and through the entire process of borrowing and breaking, then if it's been there through both of them, then you're potter. If it was one and not the other, mechayev. The Torah seems to contradict itself in the diukim. One time you're telling me only when is he chayev, when he is what? When he's absent from both. Only from both, right? Yeah. And then, if he's absent from both, then he's chayav. Yes. And if he's present in both, then he's potter. Yes. So that's a stira. What happens if one time yes, one time no? Says the Gemara, no, it's not a contradiction. Loimer lecho, second one line from the bottom. That is to tell you, that is to tell you, no, you know what? One of the two. It's not part and parcel, really. It's not all one long thing. If the owner, was with him at the time of borrowing, even though he wasn't with him at the time of broken, then he's potter, then it's good enough and he's exempt. However, if he was with him at the time of when it's broken, then that's not good enough and he has to be both broken and borrowing. In other words, we basically have to find a healthy middle. If the Torah tells you X on both and Y on both and tick on both and yes on the other two, that is to say, pick your choice. One of them is crucial for the owner to be, and one it doesn't. And we chose, the question is why. I don't know if you noticed what's going on here. We don't know why yet, but we choose arbitrarily. So it seems to say, you know where? Oh, we say if the time of borrowing the person was there, then it's important, and there it's not important. Only in the time of borrowing. That's what we say. One yes, one no, borrowing. If the bailam was there in the time of borrowing and not in the other time, we ignore the other time. Oh, the question is why? Because all we know now from the math is if you have one and you have 100, the average is 50. Which one of the 50 though? That the Gemara will deal with later, right? The Gemara will explain later why Dafka we prefer out of the two yeses and two nos, why we chose to say yes for borrowing and not for broken, meaning it doesn't make a difference if it's at the time of breaking or not. Why? Who says maybe the other way? The Gemara will deal with it later, I promise. Now, Rava says something similar, actually. Rava argues on Abaye, but only in the semantics on how you got to the same conclusion. Rava believes Rabbi Yonasan. What does mean Rava follows Rabbi Yonasan? Remember, we said it, by the way, very recently. We said it 2 Shiurim ago. What does Rabbi Yonasan say? Rabbi Yonasan says whenever in the Torah it says whenever the Torah says and, it means what we say in today's language, and or. That's exactly what he says. Yeah? No. There was Rabbi Yoshia. No. Rabbi Yonasan says it can mean either and, it can mean or. Yeah, and or is not inclusive, it's selective. And slash or. That's a chiddush. That's a chiddush of Rabbi Yonasan. Yeah? It doesn't necessarily mean both him and that. In other words, ish imoy ve'oviv, or Mikhailal Ovi ve'imoy, doesn't have to tell me an extra pasuk. If it says father and mother, automatically means one of the two. If one chas v'shalom cursed either his father or his mother, then already, he's chayv on one, and that's pshat in the pasuk. V'chula v'chola Torah kula. Now, Rav holds like Rabbi Yonasan, u'mitatz lekoi Rabbi Yonasan. He explains the pasuk like Rabbi Yonasan. The Tanya, it says in the pasuk, "Im be'olav imoy lo yeshalem." Right? If the owner is with the borrower, then the borrower doesn't have to pay. And the Torah says, the Rabbi Yonasan's Torah is the same as Rabbi Yoshia. It says borrowing and or broken. Either borrowing and or broken. One of the two. Right? So we automatically are being more selective. One of the times borrowing or broken, he was there. And again we say, you can learn that it means that the bailim, the owner, was there in both events, the borrowing and the breakage. Ashmanami, but could also mean the chi'ise bechada, v'leise bechada. What's ise? He was in one of them. V'leise bechada, and he was not present in the other. Potu, he's already potu. In other words, either borrowing or broken, you're exempt. If the bailim is there, scot-free. The sho'el is, what do you mean there? Doing work for the borrower, potter uksiv, and it says be'olav ein imo shalem yeshalem. If the owner, on the other end, it says another pasuk. If the owner is not there, the owner is not involved in any work towards the sho'el, the borrower. Mashma deleise betovayu means he's not there at all. Umashma nami, it also means, because we're now Rabbi Yonasan, not in Rabbi Yoshia, dechiise bechada v'leise bechada chayev. It means to tell me if he was there for one of the events and wasn't there for the other event, then he's chayiv. Again, according to Rabbi Yonasan, it's easier. Rabbi Yonasan, we see the Torah clearly tells you that if he was there, one of the two is chayiv, one of the two is potter. That is to tell you, if he was there at the time of borrowing, the sho'el. In other words, let's go back into things. Let's say I borrow your drill, and at the same time I moishech the drill with your permission. You are very nice. You're making me a cup of coffee. Doomed. Anything that will happen to the drill, I'll be potter. But if 3 days later, when I break the drill with my big talent, I broke your drill, and then you make me a cup of coffee, doesn't make any difference. If he was there, he was doing work for him at the time of borrowing, the owner, doesn't have to be at the time of shvur v'meisa, at the time of the breakage, in order to be potter. On the other end, if he was with him at the time of breakage, then he would only be exempt. The borrower will be exempt only if the owner was there at the time of borrowing. The Kitzur Abba and Rava are saying the same thing, but we didn't yet prove why. The Gemara is now asking the big question, Epuch ano. Two words that actually agglomerate so much in them. Epuch ano. Frag the Gemara, will switch it around. You didn't prove anything yet. All you proved was what? One thing. Either if you read and or you read or, we're talking here about 50-50. The Torah is telling you, pick your choice. Pick your choice. In other words, I know, says the Torah, that if there was one of the two events that are mentioned in the Torah, V'chi yisha, he borrowed, v'nishba or nishba, and it broke. I don't know which one does the sho'el have to be. Yeah, when do we know that the bailim, the owner, has to be doing work for him, and when we know that he doesn't? How do you know that it's dafka the time of borrowing? Maybe it's the time of breakage. Give me a reason. Give me a svara. That's a question. Now the Gemara from now on will use straight logic. Yeah, we have two boxes here. We don't know which box to tick. Yeah, who told you to tick the box of borrowing? Maybe I'll tick the box of breaking. Maybe that's more of a crucial part of the story. He didn't prove anything. We only work here with math. I know that the average between 100 and 1, let's say, is 50. That's all. Or one of the two, if you're a B'yonison. How do you know which one? Now the Gemara is going to give you the punchline soon. Says the Gemara, Mistaba, it makes sense. Why? She'ela adifa. It makes sense that the time of borrowing is more of a crucial, important time. Adifa, it's better. Why? At the time of borrowing, that is when the person brings it into his reshus, which means, the time that the person the borrower, officially makes it not completely his, but his to be the sho'el, is the time of the beginning. That's a bereshis bo. That's a basis for everything. That's when it started off. Without that, you wouldn't have anything. Frag the Gemara, Adrabah, just on the contrary. Shvur v'meisa adifa. I would say the point of breakage is more important point in the story. Sheken chayv bo'onseah, right? Because that's when he's chayv in the oinsin, right? In other words, when is the chayv? He's chayv bo'onsin. He's chayv on the breakage. What is the chayv on? That he has black eyes. What's he chayv on? He's chayv why? Bo'onsin. That's what he's chayv on, and that happened at the time of breakage. It's more of a crucial time. Answers the Gemara. It's a bit of a back and forth, a bit of a ping pong. Zog the Gemara. No, Eloi she'ela. If not for the person being an official borrower, shvur of a mesa, my ovid, then if the person would be an official borrower, how do you become a borrower? How? Doing what? Meshichah, pulling. If not for the official agreement, can I borrow your drill? Can I borrow your cow? Yes. And I pull it from your house, from your hands, yeah, whatever, if you tfachim, whatever, the question is how much, then what? If not for that, the breakage wouldn't be anything at all, right? In other words, let's say, let me concentrate here on that. Yeah, let's say you leave something in my house without my permission. But then that's going to be a sho'el, shemachinam, shemasochar. You're rushing somewhere. You're rushing to go away to take someone from the kindergarten. My neighbor tells me, Akiva, please look after my wallet. And I'm telling them, that's my face I make. Yeah. Am I chayiv on the wallet? No, I didn't accept any shmira. So don't get dramatic with me and tell me the breakage time is no. If not for me accepting shmira, accepting she'ela officially, and sort of equivalent to signing the contract, so to speak, then even if it broke, nothing would have happened. Dr. Gemara, wait. On the other hand, ilo shvur v'meisa she'ela my ovid. Says the Gemara, thank you very much. It's a tug of war. If not for shvur v'meisa, if not for the fact that the item would have been broken, then again, the fact I borrowed it wouldn't make any difference. Let's say you borrow a cow, you borrow a drill, you borrow sunglasses, you borrow whatever you want. You borrowed, you're now chayiv in everything, chayiv. After 5 days, you gave it to your friend, spotless, clean, no damage, beautiful, better than it was before. Anything happened? Nothing. So both points are crucial in the storyline of a borrower that has to pay. Again, it's a tug of war. It's like the war in card game, lahavdil. Yeah. What's the difference? Both points, both borrowing and the breakage, are crucial if you want to make a dramatic story here, or halachic story actually, for the inyan. Why is one point better than the other? If it's not a sho'el, it's not chayiv, and if nothing happened, no damage happened, it's not chayiv either. Now comes the tiebreaker. Afilu hachi she'ela adifa. The she'ela is better, is more crucial, more important, more essential. The point of borrowing and pulling it away from him. There's another factor that does not exist in our story, and that is when a person borrows the item from his friend, and let's say the item is an animal, that's a story here the whole time, the borrower, as we said a few days ago, if you remember, the borrower at this point is chayiv in two things. First of all, if anything happens, is liable. That we know. That's been discussed all the time. Second is chad b'mzonaser. Is mechuyev to feed the cow and feed it well. Not saying champagne and caviar, but he has to feed it good food, sufficient food. And if he doesn't and he fails, that's another form of chiyuv. A sho'el has a chiyuv to feed the animal properly. At what point did this happen? Oh, at the point of borrowing. The point of borrowing, that's when he has to actually was mischayev. Like in 1 second, two things dawned upon him, two hats. He's chayev in any damage done to it. And there's also chayev to take from his own pocket big money and feed it all the time. Ad kedekach, I saw this morning, I saw on Shulchan Aruch, he says, if a person doesn't feed the cow properly, or the goat, or the dog, or the cat, and now they are emaciated, now they're thin in a way that they shouldn't have been, he has to pay. Yeah. Oh, that's why. So now you see that the pulling is more important than the breakage point, because the pulling has double points and the breakage point only one. It's chayiv all the time to feed them. The moment it became chayiv is the moment of sheila. No, the point of breaking has nothing to do with food. No. But he became mischayiv at the point of borrowing. When did you are you married? Baruch Hashem, you're happily married. When did it happen you became married under the chuppah when you gave the ring? No. The moment where the chiyuv started off, the kickoff point, the start of point, the big celebration, 1, 2, 3, go, that starting point was of having to feed it, was borrowing. The breakage point is stam, he has to feed it because he's already in the situation. The situation started, the chiyuv, the shibud, the halachic chiyuv started by borrowing. No. Later on, it's just, perpetuum. Is already a perpetual thing. No, I'm schuldig. And therefore, since borrowing has 2 points, it has a point of both chayv ben ezikin and oinsin, and also chayv in feeding, because all the chiyuvim fall upon his head when he pulled the cow. That's the time of pulling. It's more crucial and more central than the point of breakage. And therefore, it makes sense that one mysterious time, we don't know which one, that the Torah says, Be'ol of Imoy, must be the borrowing time. And that's a big winner, Lekula, Marova, Abaye, and everybody else. We're going to see another reason now, but that's the main answer. Allow me to read one more, and then I'll hear your question, I promise. Rav Ashi Omar. Rav Ashi gives you another source to answer the same question. Omar Ko, the Pasuk tells you, here we have to analyze the Pasuk a bit. It says, V'chi yishal ish me'im re'eyu. Translate to English, if a person borrows from his friend, Medayek the Gemara, V'lo re'ehu imoy. It says if you borrow from your friend and you don't borrow with your friend. You don't borrow the drill or the cow or the computer with the friend. You borrow from him, means he is there. Yeah, he is not borrowed to you. He's not doing any service to you. You borrow from him, not with him. Then shalom yeshalom. Then you got to pay big time if there was breakage, if there was a problem. Ha, it's more medayek. Ha, that is to say, re'eu imoy potu. Oh, you see that if the person himself was borrowed, here is my drill, and here I am too with my drill. I'm tofel to my drill. I'll help you build the sukkah. Here is a cow, and I'm here to help you with the cow or help you with anything else. Then he's potter. What do we see? Obviously, that discusses what? The point of borrowing. Because what are we saying? If you borrow in the time of meshichah, when the story started, vechi yishal. This is in Hebrew, vechi yishal. Vechi yishal. Vechi yishal ish me'im re'eu v'not re'eu imoy. If you borrow the item, not the person. Here, the Torah does not relate at all to the Bailim. Yes, so in the psukim themselves, we see when you borrow, yes, borrow, then you borrow the item from the Bailim and not with the Bailim. Now, Frag the Gemara, thank you for patience. If so, wait a second. That's a great answer as of itself. That's a great source independently. We don't need Rabbi Yonis and Rabbi Yoshe anymore. The olive ein imoy, the im be'olive imoy lamali. Why did the Torah have to afterward tell me afterwards if the Baalim then so, and if the Baalim is not with him, then so? Why do you need all these psukim, right? I anyhow know. I know from pasuk v'chi yishal ish me'imreu, I can be medayek if a person borrows from the friend and didn't borrow the friend. Why does the Torah have to redundantly tell me more elaborately if the balim is there, the balim is not there. It's hinted to right at the beginning. Answers the Gemara, no. Ilav hanach, if not for the Torah speaking out, yes, balim, no balim, black on white afterwards, if not for the hanach, what's hanach? Those. If not for those, hava amina, I would have said, hi uche dekrohu. I would have said, this is just the way of the pasuk to talk. I wouldn't be medayik. Diuk means you take a word and you kvetch something out of the word. The Torah is not so clear about it. Therefore, the Torah needs to write more clearly. Black and white, bailim, yes, no bailim, no. That's clear. Otherwise, that beginning of pasuk, bailim, not bailim, is not that clear. Up until now, that was I would say, more technical part of the shiur. I'm listening to you soon. But soon we're going to have a very, very fascinating bunch of questions, whole group of questions, halacha l'maaseh, about borrowing, about ba'olav imoy, all kinds of scenarios the Gemara will portray. And we're going to see what the halacha is with all kinds of chidushim that I saw in the meforshim. We're going to have a lot of fun. But first, I'm going to hear your questions. I just want to explain something to answer people's questions here. Yes, in other words, we don't know what the logic is of ba'olav imoy. That's first of all. We saw in one of the achronim in the previous parak. I don't know. Shlomo is saying something nice, which I think the achronim say. What is the svar of ba'olav imoy? When the bailim is there, when the owner of the cow is also working for the person at the time of she'ela, as we just saw now, it's not so clear who is the owner and who's not the owner. In other words, yeah, I borrow the cow and I borrow you. You also work for me and I work for you. In other words, it's all balagan, all mishmash. It's not so clear. I borrowed from you. That's what the Torah is telling me. When I borrow from you, Reuven borrowed from Shimon, and Shimon is detached. There's nothing to do with Reuven except for being a mashil. Then clearly, Reuven mashil, Shimon is sho'el, and Shimon is chayiv. If Reuven is doing a job for Shimon, the Reuven is like his worker or volunteer for him. That's a bit more blurred. That's a nice idea. And now we say like this: we say that pasuk alone, me'im re'eu, is not enough to tell me ba'olav imoy, but it's enough to indicate that the important time is she'ela and not shvur v'meisa. For that, it's good enough. Now we're going to have a lot of fun. That's the best I can provide. We're going now to have a series of questions here. And Mechlokes Rishonim, how to understand this question. Boy Rami Bar Choma. Rami Bar Choma has the following question. Let's follow Rashi. Rashi says that the following 4 questions are questions to do with whether a sho'el is chayiv be'oinsin in all kinds of situations in which it's not so clear whether the idea is borrowing something worth money or borrowing something that is enjoyable for him. Let me explain. The reason why a sho'el has to pay even in case of oinsin, while nobody else has to pay in case of oinsin, is why the sho'el kol hana'a shaloi. The sho'el enjoys it, benefits from it, gets the benefit hana'a from the item, as opposed to anybody else, right? As opposed to kinyan or sachar. Now the question is it a money business or is it about his enjoyment? Let's see different nafkaminas. The Rambam has a different way. We're following Rashi now in the Ritva. Says Rashi. By Rami Bar Choma. Rami Bar Choma, the question. Believe it or not, a person borrowed it in order to have relations with the animal. Bestiality, not such a nice thing to do. Isur kor is disgusting and ugly. That's what he openly borrows it for, and the person lends it to him, to be his wife, like Bila Marosha. So now that's what he borrowed for. There are many questions here, Lifnei Ivel, other questions. But now the question is, do we say that the borrower is mechuyev if anything happens to the cow or the donkey or the whatever? Do we say kedishayli inshi ba'inan ulhachi lo shayli inshi? Do we say that the person, the borrower, has to borrow it for normal kedishayli inshi, like people normally borrow for, and this is lachi lo shayli inshi? Hopefully, most people don't borrow the animal for such a abominational thing, and therefore it's not called normal she'ela. It doesn't have the name of borrowing properly. It's not called a real borrower. It's just a meshichah. He needs a psychiatrist. Or dilma, or maybe time and mind mishum hano. Maybe the idea is, again, a sho'el. Why is a sho'el chayiv? Because he enjoys, he benefits. Sadly enough, the ainami ha'is le'ano, he has hana. He has enjoyment from that act. So at the end of the day, he's nehene. He's benefiting from that, as horrible as it is. Lemaisa, you see the lomdis here. Is it about borrowing something worth money? And what? Borrowing, that's not called borrowing. It's so bizarre and austere and crazy. It's not called borrowing. Mashenkin, if you say we only follow hana'a, you got the hana'a in a very nutty way. Hana'a. And Mimela, you got to pay for any oinsin. That's how Rashi learns the question in the Ritva. By the way, I saw the Shach points out, you see that that's only a question by a sho'el, not by shomer socho. If a person is shomer socho, which has no hana'a, and there was something even less, there was something, only something shve perutah, he has to pay for, not for hana'a. We'll discuss it later. Actually, I'm jumping the gun. We have to see a few more questions before the Shach. Question number 2. A person asks his friend, please lend me your cow or your car, your nice fancy car, your nice fancy horse. I want to be seen with your animal. I want everybody to see that I'm walking around with a big fancy animal, that I'm photographed with a nice fancy car. I want to look rich in the eyes of people. Why? Social media, Rahman al-Itzlan. The question is, says Rashi, he wants to look rich, so people give him credit. I don't know, it's not Gnevas Das, but people will see him, a photo in the computer, in the phone, him next to a fancy car, or fancy cow, or fancy horse. They would think, oh, wow, I didn't know Reuven can afford such a thing. Reuven must be rich. Let's lend him money. Let's do business with him. He's going to have good credit, but the business people, says Rashi. So he's not enjoying the body of the animal in any way. He's not plowing with it. He's not riding it. He's barely touching it. But he has hana'a from the existence of the cow, kilu in his possession. Mahu, what would we say? Mamoina ba'inan va'ika. Do we say, listen, there is money involved? Because Lamaisa, would you pay money for that? You would. I would pay money, not me. Many people would pay money to take a photo next to a fancy car and send all their friends on the computer, in the net, oh, here's me on the fancy car. Of course you'd pay for that. So there's payment. The borrowing is called borrowing. There's shove kesef. Money is involved. Or maybe Maimona de Isla no minei ba'inan veleka. Or maybe you need the money. You enjoy the body of the cow, the body of the car, the body of the computer, and veleka that you don't have. Again, you see the question? The question is, do we look at money in general, and that's why it's chayev be'oinsin? Or do we say, is chayev be'oinsin only when he's enjoying the actual animal itself for its usage, the body of that? And here, barely touched it. That's a question here. Is it money or is it hana'a? They're not always interconnected. Question number 3 on the same direction. Now it gets even stronger. Yeah, you did. You did. You did. Yeah, you did. Yeah. Nothing. Yeah. Oh, let's say the borrower is borrowing now the cow to do a job with it that is worth less than a perutah. I don't know. Let's say I'm not such a farmer. Let's say that to make a furrow, a charisha, a furrow in the ground of, let's say 1 meter is worth perutah. Yeah. Let's say a cow. Yeah, the value of that work is 1 perutah. Let's say, okay, fine. Now I borrowed your cow. I have half a meter. I have my entire field plowed beautifully. That little chupchik over there, half a meter at the end of my field. Can I please quickly borrow your cow just for half a meter, which is less than shve perutah? And we all know less than shve perutah and halacha, what is it? Not worth anything. Mau, what's halacha? Mamoina ba'inan ve'ika explains Tosfos there is money, meaning the cow didn't do a job worth money, but the cow itself is worth money. Yeah, the cow is worth $10,000. So there is money involved. Or maybe maybe we would say no. Anything less than perutah is nothing, is not considered to be anything important, because the work, the job done, again, you had hana'a. I'm really enjoying that half a meter that is the end of my field, let's say. Just an example I give, not the more that it's half a meter to the end of the field, but let's say less than shve perutah is worth something for me. I'm enjoying it. But money-wise, you get this question? Is it value of money or is it his enjoyment? Because they're not always the same. And now, says Rashi, I'm adding Rashi here, ve'imtim tziloimar. And if you want to tell me that less than shve perutah is not considered as chayev, you won't be chayev an oinsin of less than shve perutah. Comes a new question. What happens in the following new case? Remember, it's all different cases. Sho'el shtei porois lases ben perutah. Oh, let's say you are the lender. You have what? 2 cows to lend me. I'm borrowing 2 cows from you, and together, 1, 2, 3, the two cows are going to plow perutah. Let's say 1 meter is worth 1 perutah, so 2 cows are doing one value of 1 perutah. Now, what do we say? Beautiful. Mi amrinan, do we say like this? More this. Zil bosar sho'el umashil ve'ika. If you look at the general opret, the general agreement here, you have a sho'el and a mashil. The sho'el and the mashil between them, how much was borrowed? Perutah. Yeah, the animals are worth a lot, and the animals were higher than, yes, Ellen. Yeah, he knows he's going to be sho'el for a whole value of 1 entire perutah. So you should be chayiv. You borrowed for a whole perutah. But let's say, I'm stopping here in the middle, let's say 1 cow is nice and healthy. The other cow at the end of the meter broke its leg. Into that, 1 cow, if you divide it to 2 cows, 2 cows did 1 perutah. So if you divide them, the 1 cow that lost its leg, Bessie, is now out for the count, and Lucy is still good. Do I have to pay for Bessie? Yes or no? Or Dilma, maybe Zil Bosar Porois. You go by the cows. You follow each cow separately. If you look at each cow separately and not as a general agreement of shove perutah, you focus on each cow when the camera, the halachic camera, focuses on 1 cow, not the other. That 1 cow broke its leg, it's less than shve perutah, so maybe I'm not chayiv. All these are questions. Now we have to stop here for a minute to pause, and now we have to see like this. According to Rashi, up until now, all these questions were nothing to do with the Olav Imoy. These questions had to do with what? Am I chayiv or not? The guy is a sho'el. On one hand, he borrowed things that are worth money, v'chulei. Yeah. On the other hand, yeah, there is no hana'a, or the other way. Sometimes there is hana'a, but no money. What follows what? Says the Shulchan Aruch over here, the case is, says Shulchan Aruch, that because it's a suffix, it doesn't say these words Shulchan Aruch, but you don't take it out of the hands of the sho'el. Yeah, if the cow did break, we don't know what to do. Let sleeping dogs lie. And the borrower who holds the money in his pocket, you don't even have power to get the money out of his pocket. That's what Shulchan Aruch says. Okay. Now, what I told you before, let me just be a bit clearer. The Gemara is only asking this question about a sho'el, not about a shomer sochel, which means a sho'el, we have this conundrum, we have this like deliberation. What's the story here? Is it about him getting money's value, or is it about his enjoyment, right? That's really the question all along in different variations. When it comes to a shomer sochel, the shomer sochel is not getting any hana'a, right? The shomer sochel is a bank. You deposit by him, you give him money, and he looks after it. He's not enjoying it at all. Oh, you see from here that only if I gave him something shove perutah, and the value of work he did for me was shove perutah, let's say looked after it for half a minute, not shove perutah. It's not chayiv. Only if there's shve perutah all in all from all directions, then we say the shove perutah is chayiv in gneva v'aveda. Otherwise, it's not chayiv, right? Only by sho'el we say maybe even though it's less than shve perutah, you chayiv because you're nene. By shomer sochel there is no hana'a, so their money is the only thing that talks. It has to be shve perutah. That's a shach. The shach, the sifsei coin, the portion of Shulchan Aruch, he says that. Okay. I have another thing to tell before we continue. And by the way, the Rambam learns everything different. I'm not going to the Rambam now because we have more on the plate today. I have an answer, by the way, to a question that was asked a few days ago by Peretz, who's not here today. And basically, you asked, what's the difference between if the Gemara says Teiku and if the Gemara leaves it open-ended without Teiku? So apparently, the Rosh talks about it in Bava Kama, in many places, in the Shach. The general question is, depends about Tfisa. It's a question if, let's say, the wrong side caught the money. He chopped the money from the other side. Do we leave it by him or don't we leave it by him? That's to do with Teiku or not Teiku. I'm going to look into it more and I'll let you know. Okay, Blineder, it's an interesting topic. Now comes a new series of questions. Now comes, according to Rashi, where the second narrow line, the second to last narrow line, excuse me, let me stop a second. Now comes a new series of questions. Now the questions start about Be'olav Imoy. Be'olav Imoy is the question. Yeah? In other words, what's Be'olav Imoy again? If a person borrowed from who? From his friend. And his friend is now doing a job for him, right? Paid or non-paid. When? At the time of borrowing. Then the borrower is potter. From now on, anything that's going to happen is going to be, is going to be potter. Now we're going to have all kinds of questions, all kinds of scenarios and episodes to do with that halacha. Shal mi shutfin. A person borrowed, yeah, I'm sorry. A person borrowed from two partners. You want names? Let's go with names. Levi borrowed one cow. You have to remember the details from two people that are partners. Reuben and Shimon, you see them? Reuben and Shimon, they own a cow, moo, moo, moo. And now Reuben and Shimon lent a cow to who? To Levi. Levi is the borrower. Very nice. Levi, the loive. Yeah, the sho'el, and they are the owners, Reuben and Shimon. The nishaloi echad mehen. Oh, only Reuven, one of the owners, made him a cup of coffee, but not Shimon. One of the owners made him a cup of coffee when he was mash'il to him. Mahu, what's going to be the halacha? Kula be'olav ba'inan ve'haleka. Do we say you need all the ownership, the entire body of ownership to do the job for him, and that you don't have here? You don't have Reuven and Shimon doing the job, and therefore there's no be'olav imoy. And whatever happens to the cow, he's going to be chayiv. Or Dilma, or maybe Mahu Palga Didei, Mia Miftar. Or do we divide it similar to the cows? And we say no. We're going to say no. Reuven and Shimon, who made him the cup of coffee? Reuven. So we say to Reuven, I'm not going to pay. To Shimon, I'm going to pay. Shimon was smart. Shimon sat there cross-legged on purpose. Reuven is the one who was a friar. He made him the cup of coffee. Now Reuven, he's not going to charge his half. Let's say the cow is worth $1,000. 500 will not go to Reuven, the coffee maker. And Shimon, the nasty guy is going to gain, and he's going to get his 500. Yes or no? Do you look at both of them together, or do you look at each one separately? First wide line. Shut fin shesholu. Switch roles. Levi is the owner. He owns one cow. And who did he lend it to? To the borrowers, Reuven and Shimon. Good. The nisha le'echad mehen. Now Levi is the owner. Levi, the owner, made a cup of coffee only to Reuven, not to Shimon. Oh, Mau, what's halacha? Kulu sho'el ba'inan, yeah. Do we need the entire borrowing body to what? Be served, have service done to them? You don't have that. Only Reuven got service, not Shimon. So now he's going to say, you shouldn't be potter, says Levi. I only served one, not the other. And you guys are one body, one goof, and therefore you're not potter. Or Dilma, maybe, Maybe we're going to say no. You partners, Reuven and Shimon. Reuven would say, to me you did service, and to Shimon you didn't, but to me you did. So half, we're not going to give you. The car of $1,000 died, we'll give you only 500. Yeah. I think I missed the case here. No. No, that we did. Shall we shoot fin? Laisha is the next one. No, I have all the cases. No, I did. Weiter. Shalma isha v'nishal baila. Oh, here comes a whole new story. We all know that the monetary agreement between a married woman and a husband, there are a few options how to divide the money, v'chule. One of the most classical cases, which we've seen many times, is nichsei milug. Nichsei milug, we all know, is what? There's money that the woman brought from her previous life, right? Let's say a piece of land, or not only a piece of land, as the Gemara usually gives the example. Sometimes it could be an animal, a cow. She brought a cow to the marriage. She has a big fancy cow. She lives in a moshav. She brought the cow into the marriage. How nice. Or a piece of land. And what do they do now? One of the most traditional ways the Chazal say, nichse milug. Nichse milug, you have to remember that by heart. A goof of the woman and the parents of the husband. The body belongs to the woman through the entire marriage. Yeah. And the peros, what's peros? The fruit, the usage, the rent, the day-to-day usage and profit belong to the husband. However, before we continue, this is a very crucial Tosfos here that says a husband, cannot do anything with the field or the cow without asking his wife's permission. Yeah, okay. In other words, she of course cannot do anything without him. Only the body is her. But Lamaisa, the day-to-day usage is his, and he rakes in the gain, the profit, and he has to feed her with that. But he also, you should know, cannot just go scot-free, do whatever he wants and say, oh, the usage is mine. Let's say he lends it to someone, he has to ask her permission. Yeah, to sell it, for sure he cannot sell it because the body is hers. But even to lend it, is also not something he can do without her. They're basically, the woman and the husband are basically partners that are tied together in a weird way not regular 50-50, but she owns the body and he owns the usage, the fruit, the profits, the anything about that. Now, sho'el meha'isha. Let's say a person borrowed a cow of nichse miluk from the woman. Knock, knock. The woman allows him and she lends him the cow, who she owns the body of the cow. Venishal baila. And at the same time, the husband, who's also a partner, owning the peros, the usage of the cow, he made a cup of coffee to the borrower. You know what I'm saying? Husband and wife partners in the cow. They lend him the cow, and only the husband is the one who was doing some service to the borrower, to the sho'el. Question number 2, the opposite mirror image. Isha sheshala, yeah, a woman borrowed what? She borrowed a cow, yeah, in order to plow nichse milug. In this case, the second case, the karka, the land is that partnership of man, woman, nichse milug. She borrowed a regular cow from a man, regular thing. She borrowed in order to plow the field of nichse milug. Venishal lebal, the guy, the owner of the cow, now made a cup of coffee only to the husband. Get what's going on here? In other words, both husband and wife gain something here or give, and the only one doing service or receiving service is only the husband. What's really the question? Mahu, what's the question? Kinyan pers kinyan guf dami oiloi. That's a time-old question. Do we say that owning the peros, yeah, the fruit, the benefits, the things on top of the land is like it's as if you own the body of the land or not? That's a question which we're going to tackle. In other words, the husband owns what? The fruit. Do we say that owning the fruit, which is not the body of the cow, is like owning the body, and then he's an equal partner, and then he's like a sho'el or mashil, equal? Or do we say, no equal rights. The woman is more, and the woman owns the body, and the husband, he owns the what comes out of the animal, out of the land, but he's not owner of the land itself, the cow itself. So he's not called a sho'el, not a mashil. That's a question which we're going to elaborate on soon. We're going to answer that question soon, but first the Gemara has another question. 2 questions, 2 answers. Question number 2. A person tells his messenger, he tells his friend who is willing to be a messenger, a proxy, say, go out, sho'el li imparosi, which means, I'm giving a phone call to who? To my friend Reuven. Reuven, I really have a good friend called Reuven, my chavrusa. I'm asking Reuven, can you please lend my cow to my friend who's interested? And you also mind helping him with the cow? Yeah? I'm the owner, but I am not doing it myself. I'm giving shiur now. What do? I'm asking my friend, can you go on my behalf and you be the helper to the sho'el, to the borrower? And then it broke. Boom. 4 days later, broke. Mahu. What do we say? The olav mamish ba'ina veleka. When the Torah says ba'olav ima means the actual body, physical body of the bailim has to be involved in helping, and that you don't have over here. You don't have the body. My friend Reuven, I sent him as a halachic shliach, but he's not me. Or Dilma, or maybe shlucha shalodem k'moisoi, the ika. Or maybe we say, no, we have a very, very, very well-known rule of shlucha shalodem k'moisoi. Whatever halachic ramifications a shliach does affect the owner, I can send a shaliach to be mekadesh a woman, she'll be my wife, and everything else, trumas, maisos, v'chule, yeah? And here you have, maybe the power of shlichus is good enough over here too. These are the 2 questions, husband and wife, and not 2 partners. And a shaliach meshaleach, yeah? The meshaleach and the messenger. Each one will be answered. Omel Ravacha b'red Rav Avia l'Ravashi. Baal, Ravacha is now answering Ravashi. Ravashi asked the question. Baal, your question regarding a husband and a wife, Plugta de Rabbi Yochanan v'Shlakish is a famous, well-known machlokes, Rabbi Yochanan v'Shlakish, in Bava Basra, Kuf Lamed Vav, if I'm not mistaken. Shliach, your second question regarding a messenger, Plugta de Rabbi Yochanan v'Rabbi Yoshia. Again, Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yoshia. Everything will be explained. Let's now start nice and slow. Baal, again, what's the question of Baal? The husband who now took something of his wife, of her body and his peros, and he's now being served or serving the other, right? We ask the question, is he a real owner to be called a real borrower and a real owner, or maybe he's not a real owner. He only owns the Paris, doesn't own anything in the cow itself. Look to the Rabbi Yochanan Shlakish. It's a mechlekes Rabbi Yochanan Shlakish. The itmar a moichel sadeu lechavero leperos. Look at the following case, and you're going to find the similarities to our case. A person sold a sode, a field, to his friend only to get the fruit. My friend, I'm writing clearly in the contract, the body of the field is not yours. You get the fruit for two. You're going to get the field to plow, to do whatever you want, but all you're going to get is what? The fruit. The fruit of the next 2 or 3 years are yours. You're the owner of the fruit. I am remaining throughout the sale. Me and only me I am remaining the owner of the ground. You are the owner of the fruit. Okay? Okay. Now, the question is about bikurim. Beautiful. After 3 or 4 years, no netarivai, whatever, yeah. Bikurim, the first fig, the first grapes. Who's going to bring bikurim? Rabbi Yochanan Omer Mevi v'koire. Rabbi Yochanan says, the one who plowed and tilled and picked and worked everything, who's the owner of only the fruit, he is allowed and should go to Beis HaMikdash, bring the bikurim and state. What do you say when you bring bikurim? What are the words? Adoma shonasata li Hashem. And he can say in front of a Kadosh Baruch Hu without lying, the land you gave me, it's mine. Why? Because Rabbi Yochanan says, if you own the fruit, you're tachlis, the owner. It's as if you own part of the land too. Where did the fruit come from? From the land. You're the owner of the land too, or partial owner of the land. Rish Lakish Omer, maybe ve'enoi koire. Rish Lakish says, you bring bikurim, all very nice. You worked, you tilled, you picked, very nice. Eino koire. You cannot say the words ha'adoma shonasata li. Don't say to Hashem, the land you gave me, because since you only own the fruit and you bring the bikurim, but the land is not yours. You're only an exterior owner, not an owner of the body of the land. As the Gemara is going to explain it. Rabbi Yochanan says you bring and you read and you state my land, kinyan pers ka kinyan aguf dami. Owning fruit is like owning the body. That's Rabbi Yochanan. Rish Lakish Omer maybe ve'enoi koire. Rish Lakish says no. You should bring the bikurim. It's yours, but you cannot say it's my land. Why? Kinyan pers lav ki kinyan aguf dami. Owning fruit is not like owning the actual land. You only are the owner. You're a minor partner. You're a minor person here. You're not equal to the other person. You own the benefits, the outside things, but the real body of it is not yours. Let me ask you a question. All very nice. What's the halacha? About Vaynoisai, I don't remember what are the 3 things, but I know there are 3 cases in Shas where halacha is the Rish Lakish and not Rabbi Yochanan. Usually halacha is the Rabbi Yochanan. There are 3 cases where halacha is like Rish Lakish. That's one of them. One of these cases is this. Rish Lakish is, one of those places is halacha, kinyan peres. There are many nafkaminas and cases, but generally speaking, halacha is like Rish Lakish. Kinyan peres is lav ki kinyan aguf dami, and therefore in our story, what will be the husband? Is not effective at all. Here, if the husband is the one lending or borrowing together with her, but the service, the cup of coffee, was only made to the husband, the borrower, or by the husband, the owner, doesn't affect anything. Because kinyan peres, lav ki kinyan aguf, so the husband is not a real owner, not a real borrower, and not a real giver here. And there's no ba'olav imoy, because it's not real ba'olav, it's not real bailim. Yeah, that is what? That's a piece of a women's lib over here. That's what. Stop. Next piece, shliach. What about shliach? Look at Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi Yoshia. What's Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi Yoshia? It's not the same thing with the and or business, but what shliach? Shliach is a person who is my messenger. Halachically, I can always make shliach to do what? Kiddushin, Gerushin, Truma, Kohanim. How can Kohanim work in Beis HaMikdash and the korban is mine? Shlichus. It works. It says Shluchot Rahman and Tidan. Yeah. Now, what about the shaliach? 1 second, please. What about the shaliach who is working on behalf of the owner? Yeah. You want to borrow my drill? I'm not home. I'm asking Yitzchok, can you please lend him my drill and also do work for him on my behalf? And then the drill broke. Do we say that when Yitzchok did the work, it's as if I did it or not? It's a machloikas between Rabbi Yonasan and Rabbi Yoshia. The Tanya. It says in the Brisa. And this has to do with what we read yesterday in Kiras HaTorah. Yesterday's Parsha, Matos Masei. Yeah, a husband, we know. A husband can annul the vows of his wife. Very nice. Look at the following case in the Baisa. A person tells an apotropos. A person went to Chutzlar. One of the apotropos, a custodian. A person went to Chutzlar for a while. He told another friend, "Please be in charge of my home. You give money to my wife, money for my children. You deal with my household issues financially and otherwise." And he told the apotropos, "Kol nedorim shete ishti noderes mikan ad she'oven mimokim ploini." All the nedorim that my wife will be noider from this point until I come back from Chutz La'aretz, hefer lo, I want you now to be instead of me, on behalf of me. You hear the woman saying, "Hooray, koinam alai potatoes, konam alai tomatoes or tomatoes. I'm not going to eat tomatoes, potatoes by neder, by vow." Right away, stop that nonsense. And on my behalf, you stop it and say, "Mufar loch." It's mufar, it's broken. The Hefir law, and so it was. The day after he left to Chutzar, she feels like a free bird, and she likes to be a nadronis, like some women are, and she wants to go on a diet. Koina malai ice cream, koina malai yellow cheese, koina malai fat this, and the apotropos says annulled. Yochel Yomi foreign. Does that halachically work? Question of Machloikes, Talmud Loimar. Isha yikimenu ve'isha yifirenu divra b'yoshia. Because the Torah repeats the word husband twice, we go against the general rule of Shlucha Shalom Kamoisa Kol Torah Kula, because it says her husband, and again it says her husband twice. Mimela, we know it has to be husband and only the husband himself, not his messenger. So here too, it's not going to work. 1 second. Rabbeinu says, "I'm sorry. I don't think the word Isha comes to tell me anything special. I follow the general rule, which we all learned in Cheder, Shlucha Shaladim Kamaisai, be it by Nedorim, be it wherever you want." Oh, so now let's reflect on our case. Oh, here too says Tosfos, it says the olive twice. Yeah, the olive is also mentioned twice. Same question. When it says the olive imoy this way or the other way, yes, bailim, no bailim, the word be'olive is mentioned twice. Same machlokes. Yeah, what would we say? Rabbi Yoshua said, Rabbi Yoshua says it has to be the owner himself of the drill or the car or the computer of the item that has to do physical work for the borrower. If another guy did it, it doesn't work. Rabbi Yonasan says no. Rabbi Yonasan says, I have other ideas what to do with the extra word, and I think we have the regular rule of shluch shaladim k'maisai. Anything a shliach does, it's as if was done by the original owner, by the real guy, by the real deal. And therefore here too, there is ba'al of imoy, and if anything broke, the sho'el is potu. Tomorrow we're going to ask about an eved. Yeah, we're almost there at the end of the page. Thank you very much. It's Rabba. Thank you for everyone here. Rabbi Shalom. Thank you to our participants in Kol Halashon. That's a new one. And to those who watch us in Torah anytime and in our YouTube channel. Thank you very much. It's Thank you. Have a great day, great week.